I watched my wife poison my drink, and I drank it anyway. The glass was warm in my hand, not from the whiskey, but from how long I'd been holding it without moving, without breathing, just watching her across the dining table like she was a stranger who had somehow learned my name. Lily didn't look up. She never did anymore. The soft glow from the chandelier caught in her hair, turning it into something almost unreal, like a memory I couldn't quite reach. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the table, still, composed, like nothing in this room could touch her. Not even me. I used to think that stillness meant peace. Now it felt like distance. Like a line I couldn't cross. The scent of the whiskey drifted up, sharp and familiar, but tonight there was something beneath it. Faint. Almost nothing. If I hadn't been paying attention, I would have missed it. But I had been paying attention. For weeks. Maybe longer. It started with the headaches. Then the exhaustion. The way my body felt, slower. Like something inside me was being quietly rewritten. I didn't say anything at first. Men like me don't jump to conclusions. We observe. We wait. We confirm. And eventually, we act. But tonight I didn't want confirmation. I wanted truth. Even if it broke something I couldn't fix. Lily reached for her water, taking a small sip, her movements careful, controlled. She still hadn't looked at me. Not since I walked in. Not since I placed the glass between us and said nothing. Silence stretched across the room, heavy and deliberate. This wasn't an argument. It wasn't even a conversation. It was something colder. Something final. I lifted the glass slowly, my eyes never leaving her face, waiting for something, anything, to crack. A flinch. A hesitation. A flicker of guilt. Nothing. Just that same quiet distance. Like she had already made her choice. The rim touched my lips. For a second, time folded in on itself. Every memory. Every moment. The way she used to laugh. The way she used to look at me like I was something more than what I was. I swallowed. The liquid burned down my throat, familiar, steady, unchanged. But my chest tightened anyway. Not from the drink. From what it meant. I set the glass down with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. Still, she didn't look up. My fingers curled slightly against the table. If you're going to do it, I said quietly, my voice sounding distant even to me, you should at least watch. That made her pause. Just for a second. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. I always saw everything. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to mine. And for the first time in weeks, I saw something there. Not fear. Not guilt. Something deeper. Something I couldn't name. You think I'm trying to kill you, she said, her voice soft, steady, like she was stating a fact instead of defending herself. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was already sitting between us. In the glass. In the silence. In the space where trust used to live. She studied me for a moment longer, then leaned back slightly, her expression unreadable. Then why did you drink it? The question hung in the air, simple, and impossible to answer without unraveling everything. I exhaled slowly, my gaze fixed on her, searching for the woman I thought I knew. Because I wanted to see, I said. If you'd let me. And just like that, something shifted. Not in the room. Not in the air. In her. It was subtle. Almost invisible. But I felt it. Like the first crack in glass right before it shatters. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't sure who was in control anymore. Her question did not leave the room. It stayed between us, pressing against my chest like something alive, something waiting. I did not answer right away because the truth was not simple, and simple answers were for people who still believed in them. I studied her instead, the way I had learned to study everything that could hurt me. The slight rise and fall of her breathing. The way her fingers tightened just a fraction against the edge of the table. The way her eyes did not look away this time. She was waiting too. Not for an excuse. For a decision. I leaned back in my chair slowly, the leather creaking under the shift of my weight, grounding me in something real. Because if you wanted me gone, I said quietly, you would not do it like this. Her expression flickered, just for a second, like a candle catching a draft. Not denial. Not relief. Something more complicated. You give me too much credit, she replied, her voice calm, but softer now, like the edges had been worn down by something I could not see. I shook my head once. No, I said. I do not give you enough. Silence returned, but it was different this time. Not empty. Not cold. It felt like standing at the edge of something neither of us had named yet. I reached for the glass again, not to drink, just to move it, to feel its weight, to remind myself that I was still in control of something. But even that felt like a lie tonight. It started 3 weeks ago, I said, my voice steady, measured. The headaches. The fatigue. The way my hands would shake when no one was looking. I paused, watching her carefully. I had the house checked. Every bottle. Every cabinet. Every delivery. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in fear but in recognition. She knew what that meant. And she asked. Nothing, I said. Which is why this does not make sense. The words hung there, heavy with everything I was not saying. Because in my world, things always made sense. There was always a reason. Always a source. Always someone behind it. Except this time, the only person close enough to reach me was sitting right in front of me. Lily exhaled slowly, her gaze dropping to the table for the first time tonight. Not avoidance. Consideration. Like she was weighing something. You should have asked me, she said finally. I let out a quiet breath, something almost like a laugh but without any humor in it. I am asking you now. She looked back up at me, and this time there was something unmistakable in her eyes. Not fear. Not guilt. It was frustration. And underneath it, something that looked dangerously close to hurt. No, she said softly. You are accusing me. The distinction landed harder than I expected. Because she was right. And we both knew it. I leaned forward slightly, my voice lowering without meaning to. Then give me a reason not to. For a moment, I thought she would. I saw it in the way her lips parted, in the way her shoulders shifted like she was about to step into something she had been holding back. But then she stopped. Whatever had been there, she pulled it back. Locked it away behind that same quiet control that had been driving me apart piece by piece. If I tell you, she said slowly, each word deliberate, you will not believe me. I felt something tighten in my chest at that. Not anger. Something sharper. Try me. Another pause. Longer this time. Heavier. Then she shook her head, just once. You already made your decision the moment you lifted that glass, she said. You just do not realize what it means yet. The room felt smaller suddenly. The air thicker. Like I had stepped into something I could not see but could not escape either. I held her gaze, searching for any crack, any opening, anything that would give me back control of this moment. Then explain it to me, I said, quieter now. Not demanding. Not commanding. Just asking. And for the first time since this started, I was not sure if I was ready for the answer. She held my gaze like she was deciding whether I was worth the truth or just another man who could not handle it, and I realized something I had been avoiding for weeks, maybe longer, something that settled deep in my chest like a quiet warning I could no longer ignore. I did not just doubt her, I had never truly trusted her to begin with, not completely, not in the way she had trusted me when she stepped into my world without asking what it would cost her, and that realization felt heavier than anything else in the room, heavier than the glass, heavier than the silence, heavier than the space between us that kept growing no matter how close we sat. You think I already chose, I said slowly, my voice lower now, less certain than I wanted it to be. Then tell me what I chose. She did not answer right away. She looked at me the way someone looks at a stranger who used to be familiar, like she was trying to find something that had already disappeared. And when she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before but sharper at the edges. You chose doubt, she said, the moment you started watching me instead of trusting me. The words landed without force, but they stayed, echoing in a way I could not shake. I leaned back again, dragging a hand slowly across my jaw, grounding myself in something physical because everything else felt like it was shifting. Trust is not something I give blindly, I replied, not in my world. Her lips curved slightly, not into a smile, not even close, more like recognition, like she had expected that answer all along. Exactly, she said, and there it was again. That quiet finality in her tone, like she was closing a door I had not realized was still open. I felt something tighten in my chest, something I did not like, something that felt dangerously close to losing control. Then help me understand, I said, this time without the edge, without the accusation, just the truth of it, just the need to know. She looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing an invisible line across the table, slow, deliberate, like she was mapping out something only she could see. Do you remember the night we met? She asked. Suddenly, her voice distant now, pulled somewhere between the present and something far behind it. I did not answer immediately because I did remember, not the details, not all of them, but the feeling, the way everything had shifted in a single moment, the way she had stepped into my life like she belonged there even when she did not. I remember enough, I said, and she nodded slightly, like that was all she expected. You were not supposed to survive that night, she continued quietly, and something in the way she said it made the air feel thinner, harder to breathe. What does that have to do with this? I asked, my voice sharper now, because I did not like where this was going. I did not like how little control I had over it. She lifted her eyes back to mine, and this time there was no distance, no softness, just clarity. Everything, she said, and the words settled between us like a truth I had not been ready to face. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. The polished wood cool under my skin, steady, real, something I could hold onto while everything else started to unravel. Then stop speaking in pieces, I said, quieter now, controlled but strained, and tell me the whole thing. She studied me for a long moment, like she was measuring whether I could carry what she was about to give me, and for the first time since this started, I saw hesitation in her, not fear, not doubt, something else, something that felt heavier. If I do, she said slowly, you are not going to walk away from this the same man. I held her gaze, not looking away, not backing down, even as something inside me warned me to stop, to leave it alone, to keep things the way they were. Simple, controlled, safe, but I did not move. I could not. I am already not that man, I said, and the truth of it settled deep, quiet, undeniable, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw something break in her expression, something fragile, something real, before she closed it off again, and when she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it now, something I had not heard before, something that sounded like the beginning of an ending. Then listen carefully, she said, because this is the part where everything you think you know stops being true. Her words did not rush out, they unfolded slowly, like something she had been holding back for far too long, and I could feel the shift before she even said the next sentence, the kind of shift that changes everything without warning. The night we met, she said, her voice steady but distant, you were not just in the wrong place at the wrong time, Ethan, you were already marked. My jaw tightened slightly at that, not because I did not understand the meaning, but because I did, too well. By who? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would not be simple. She did not respond immediately. Instead she reached for the glass in front of me, her fingers brushing against it lightly, almost absent-minded, but I noticed it. I noticed everything now. By people you trust, she said finally, and the words settled deep, colder than anything she had said so far. I let out a slow breath, controlled, measured, the way I had trained myself to respond when something did not add up. That is not an answer, I said, but my voice had changed, just enough to betray that it had landed. She looked at me again, and this time there was no hesitation, no softness left, just truth, sharp and unavoidable. It is the only answer you are willing to hear, she replied, and for a moment, neither of us moved, the silence stretching until it became something else entirely, something heavier, something undeniable. I leaned forward slightly, my hands resting flat against the table, grounding myself. Forcing control back into a moment that was slipping away from me. You are telling me that someone inside my circle has been poisoning me, I said, each word deliberate, precise, and instead of telling me, you decided to. I gestured faintly toward the glass, the implication clear. Her gaze followed the movement, then returned to mine, unshaken. To keep you alive, she finished quietly, and there it was, laid out between us in a way that felt almost unreal. I stared at her, searching for anything that would tell me this was not true, that this was not another layer of something I had already misread, but there was nothing, just that same steady certainty in her eyes. You expect me to believe that, I said, but it did not come out as a challenge, it came out as something else, something closer to disbelief. She tilted her head slightly, studying me in a way that felt unfamiliar, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. No, she said softly, I expect you not to, and that hit harder than anything else she had said, because it meant she had already accepted the outcome of this conversation long before it started. My chest tightened again, sharper this time, more immediate. Then why tell me at all? I asked, quieter now, the edge gone, replaced by something I did not want to name. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, something breaking through before she pulled it back. Because you asked, she said, simple, direct, and somehow more painful than any explanation. I shook my head slightly, running a hand through my hair, trying to piece this together, trying to find the part that made sense, the part one could control, but it was not there. It was slipping through my fingers the more I reached for it. If this is true, I said slowly, then why not come to me the moment you knew? Her expression shifted again, not into anger, not into frustration, but into something heavier, something that carried weight I had not accounted for. Because you would not have believed me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper now, and the certainty in it left no room for argument. I opened my mouth to respond, to deny it, to push back, but the words did not come, because somewhere deep down, I knew she was right. I would have questioned her, doubted her, maybe even dismissed it entirely, and that truth sat between us now, exposed, unavoidable. Lily leaned back slightly, creating more distance between us, not physically, but something deeper than that, something I could feel but could not stop. You built your world on control, Ethan, she continued, her voice steady again, but colder now, and control does not leave space for trust. I looked at her, really looked at her this time, and for the first time since this began, I realized something that unsettled me more than anything else she had said. She was not trying to convince me, she was not trying to defend herself, she was simply telling me the truth, and letting me decide what to do with it, and that was far more dangerous than any lie could ever be. The truth did not explode, it settled, slow and heavy, like something that had always been there waiting for me to finally see it, and I hated that part the most, not the accusation, not the possibility that someone close to me had been working against me, but the quiet certainty in her voice when she said I would not have believed her, because she was right, and we both knew it. I exhaled slowly, leaning back again, creating distance that did nothing to ease the tension pressing in from every direction. You are asking me to accept that someone inside my own circle has been weakening me for weeks, I said, my tone controlled but tighter now, and that you decided to handle it alone. Lily did not flinch, did not even blink, she just watched me, steady, unshaken. I am not asking you to accept anything, she replied, I am telling you what happened. The distinction hit again, sharp, deliberate, like she was drawing a line I could not step back across. I let out a short breath through my nose, my fingers tapping once against the table before going still, grounding myself, thinking, calculating, the way I always did, but this time the pieces did not fit the way they were supposed to. This time the only variable I could not control was the one sitting across from me. How long? I asked, quieter now, more focused. Her gaze did not waver. Long enough, she said. And that was not an answer, not one I could work with. Not one I could act on. That is not specific. I pushed, and for the first time, something in her expression shifted, not into fear, not into hesitation, but into something that looked like exhaustion, deep and quiet, like she had been carrying this alone for longer than I realized. 3 weeks, she said finally, and the number landed harder than I expected, because it matched, it aligned too perfectly with everything I had already noticed. Every symptom, every detail I had tried to dismiss. My jaw tightened slightly, my mind moving faster now, connecting things I had overlooked, conversations, routines, small changes that had not seemed important at the time. And you are telling me you have been giving me something every night, I said, my eyes flicking briefly to the glass again. then back to her. She nodded once. Calm, certain, a countermeasure, she said. Small doses, enough to stabilize what is already in your system. The way she said it, precise, controlled, told me this was not a guess, not a theory. This was something she knew, something she had planned, and that realization shifted something inside me, something I did not want to acknowledge. You sound very certain, I said, watching her carefully, searching for any inconsistency, any crack, anything that would give me back the upper hand. But there was nothing, just that same quiet confidence. Because I am, she replied. And the simplicity of it made it harder to dismiss. I leaned forward again, my voice lower now, more dangerous, not in threat but in intent. Then tell me who. The words hung there, direct, unavoidable. Her eyes held mine, steady, unyielding, and for a moment, I thought she would answer. I saw it in the way her lips parted slightly, in the way her shoulders shifted forward like she was about to close the distance between us, but then she stopped, something pulling her back again, something I could not see but could feel. No, she said softly, and the refusal was not defensive, not hesitant, it was final. My expression hardened slightly at that, frustration cutting through the control I had been holding on to. You expect me to believe this and you will not even tell me who is responsible, I said, and this time the edge returned, sharp and clear. She did not react to it, not the way I expected. Instead she just shook her head once, slow, deliberate. I expect you to figure it out, she said, and that hit differently, not as defiance, but as something else entirely, something closer to challenge. My fingers curled slightly against the table again, tension building, controlled but present. You are playing a dangerous game, I said, quieter now, because that was the truth. Not a warning, not a threat, just a fact. Her gaze softened, just slightly, just enough to make it worse. So are you, she replied, and for a moment, neither of us spoke, the silence stretching again, heavier than before, filled with everything that had been said and everything that had not. And in that silence, I realized something I had not been ready to admit until now. This was no longer about whether she had poisoned me. This was about whether I had already lost her without realizing it. The silence after her words did not feel empty anymore. It felt loaded, like something was already in motion and I was the last one to realize it. I watched her carefully, trying to find the point where this shifted from something I could control into something I could not, and it bothered me that I could not pinpoint it, because there was always a moment, always a mistake, always a detail that revealed itself if you looked long enough. But with Lily, there was nothing obvious, nothing careless. Just intention. You want me to figure it out, I said slowly, repeating her words like I was testing them for weakness. Then that means you already know who it is. She did not deny it. And that alone told me more than any name could have. My mind started moving again, faster now, sharper, running through every person who had access, every meeting, every routine that had become predictable over time, patterns I had trusted because they had never failed me before, until now. This is not random, I continued, more to myself than to her. It is controlled, consistent, which means it is someone close. Someone with access I do not question. Lily remained still, watching me the way she had been all night, but there was something different now, something quieter, like she was waiting for me to reach the conclusion on my own, not because she could not tell me, but because she needed me to understand it without her. And you are still not going to say it, I added, glancing back at her. She shook her head once, not out of defiance, but certainty. No, she said softly, and that single word carried more weight than anything else, because it meant this was not just about truth, it was about what came after it. I stood up slowly from the table, the chair sliding back with a low sound that cut through the room, not loud, but enough to break the stillness that had settled around us. I needed movement, needed space, needed something that was not her eyes on me while everything shifted under my feet. I walked a few steps away, then stopped, running a hand across the back of my neck, feeling the tension that had built there over the past weeks without me noticing. 3 weeks, I said again, quieter now, the number repeating in my mind like a code I had missed the first time. 3 weeks of small changes, of subtle shifts, of moments I had dismissed because they did not fit the pattern of a direct threat, and that was the problem. Whoever this was, they did not want a direct threat, they wanted time, they wanted control, they wanted me to weaken without realizing it, and that required patience, precision, and access. I turned back toward her slowly, my expression more focused now, less reactive, more calculated. This is someone who knows my schedule, I said, someone who knows what I eat, what I drink, when I am alone, when I am not. Lily did not interrupt, did not confirm, but she did not need to. The silence itself was confirmation. I exhaled slowly, my chest tightening as the list in my mind became shorter, more specific, more dangerous, which means it is not just someone inside my circle. I continued, my voice lower now. It is someone I trust without thinking. The realization settled deep, uncomfortable, unavoidable, and for the first time since this started, I felt something unfamiliar press in from the edges of my control. Not fear, not exactly, something colder, something that came when the threat was not outside, but already inside the walls I had built. I looked at her again, really looked this time, and I saw it, not satisfaction, not relief, but something else, something heavier, something that told me she had been carrying this alone longer than I had been willing to see. You have known this the entire time, I said quietly, and this time it was not a question. She nodded once, her gaze steady but softer now. Yes, she said, and there was no hesitation in it, no doubt, just truth, and that truth landed harder than anything else, because it meant while I had been searching for answers, she had already found them. While I had been watching her, suspecting her, she had been protecting me from something I had not even seen yet, and that realization did something I was not prepared for. It shifted the weight of everything that had happened tonight, not away from her, but onto me, and I was not sure what to do with that yet. The room felt different now, not because anything had changed physically, but because I had, and that shift made everything sharper, clearer, harder to ignore. I walked back toward the table slowly, each step measured, controlled, but my mind was no longer searching blindly. It was narrowing, focusing, cutting away everything that did not fit until only the truth remained, and the truth was not wide, it was precise, uncomfortably precise. There are only a few people who have that kind of access, I said, my voice steady but quieter now, less defensive, more certain. Lily did not respond, but she did not need to. The silence between us had become something else entirely. Something that confirmed more than words ever could. I stopped at the edge of the table, my eyes dropping briefly to the glass before lifting back to her. Not just access, I continued, but consistency, timing, control over my routine without raising suspicion. I let out a slow breath, the pieces locking into place one by one, and with each connection, something inside me tightened, not from fear, but from recognition, because I knew this pattern. I understood this level of precision. It was not random, it was learned, practiced, deliberate. This is someone who has been close for a long time, I said, more quietly now, the realization settling deeper with every word. Someone who knows how I think, how I move, how I trust. Lily's gaze softened slightly, not in comfort, but in acknowledgement, like she had been waiting for me to reach this exact point, and that realization made something else surface. Something I had not been ready to face until now. You said I was marked the night we met, I added, my eyes narrowing slightly as I connected it back, which means this did not start 3 weeks ago. Her expression did not change, but there was something in her eyes now, something that confirmed it before she even spoke. No, she said quietly, it did not. The weight of that answer settled heavier than anything else, because it meant this was not just recent, not just opportunistic, it was planned, extended. Something that had been moving in the background while I believed I was in control of everything around me. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding, my hand brushing lightly against the back of the chair before gripping it, steadying myself, not physically, but mentally, because the shift was complete now. The doubt that had been directed at her was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous, something internal, something that reached deeper than I had anticipated. Then it is not just someone I trust, I said slowly, the words forming carefully, deliberately. It is someone who helped build that trust. Lily did not interrupt, did not confirm, but the silence pressed in again, heavier than before, and that was enough. It always was. I closed my eyes for a brief second, just long enough to let the name settle before I said it out loud, not as a guess, not as a question, but as something I already knew. Victor. The word left my mouth quietly, but it changed everything in the room, not because of the sound, but because of what it meant. I opened my eyes again, looking directly at her, and for the first time since this conversation began, I saw something undeniable in her expression. Not relief, not surprise, but something closer to resignation, like the truth had finally caught up to both of us. My right hand, I continued, my voice lower now, more controlled than ever, because control was the only thing I had left to hold on to, the one person who has never been questioned, never been limited, never been outside my inner circle. Lily nodded once, slow, deliberate, and that single motion confirmed everything, every suspicion, Every piece that had not fit until now. My grip tightened slightly on the chair, not from anger, not yet, but from the weight of what this meant, because betrayal from an enemy is expected, it is calculated, it is something you prepare for, but betrayal from someone you built your world with, someone you trusted without hesitation, that was something else entirely, something that shifted the ground beneath everything you thought was stable. I exhaled slowly, my gaze drifting for a moment before returning to her, sharper now, clearer, more dangerous in its certainty. You knew, I said, not accusing, just stating it. She met my eyes without hesitation. Yes, she replied, and there was no apology in it, no regret, just truth, and for a moment, everything else fell away, the tension, the suspicion, the distance, leaving only one undeniable fact standing between us. She had not been the threat, she had been the one thing keeping me alive while I was too blind to see it. And that realization did not just change what I thought about her, it changed what I thought about myself. I did not sit down again, not this time, because sitting felt too close to surrender and I was not ready for that, not yet. I stayed standing at the edge of the table, the distance between us no longer about space but about everything that had been broken without either of us saying it out loud. Victor, I repeated quietly, not because I needed confirmation, but because saying his name made it real in a way thinking it never could. Lily watched me carefully, not interrupting, not correcting, just letting the truth settle where it needed to, and I realized something else in that moment. She had already gone through this part alone, the disbelief, the denial, the slow acceptance. She had already stood where I was standing now, and she had not had anyone to steady her when it happened. He has been with me for years, I said, my voice tightening slightly despite my control. Longer than you. The comparison slipped out before I could stop it, and I saw it land, not as offense, not as anger, but as something quieter, something more final. Lily lowered her gaze for a second, then lifted it again, steady as ever. I know, she said, and those two words carried more weight than anything else, because they meant she understood exactly what that loyalty had meant to me, and she still chose to stand against it. I ran a hand through my hair again, slower this time, grounding myself in the movement while everything inside me shifted, recalculated, redefined. If what you are saying is true, I said, more to myself now than to her, then this was never about eliminating me quickly. Lily nodded slightly. No, she said. It was about control, weakening you slowly, making sure you never realized what was happening until it was too late. Her words were calm, but they landed sharp, precise, because they aligned perfectly with everything I was now seeing clearly, everything I had missed because I trusted too easily in one direction and not enough in another. I let out a slow breath, my chest tightening again, not from fear, but from the weight of realization. And you have been countering it, I said, my eyes flicking once more to the glass, then back to her. Every night, she nodded, no hesitation, no doubt. Every night, she confirmed, and something in that repetition hit differently, because it was not just action, it was intention, it was choice, repeated over and over. Without recognition, without acknowledgement, without trust, I looked at her, really looked this time, past the distance, past the silence, past everything I had projected onto her over the past weeks, and I saw it, not just what she had done, but what it had cost her to do it alone. You could have left, I said quietly, the thought coming to me too late. You could have walked away from this, from me. She held my gaze, unflinching. Yes, she said simply, and that single word carried no regret, just truth. I swallowed once, the motion subtle but real, because the next part mattered more than anything else. But you did not, I added, and this time it was not a statement, it was something closer to understanding. She exhaled softly, the sound barely audible but present. No, she said, and for the first time since this conversation began, there was something in her voice that shifted, something fragile, something real. I did not. The silence that followed was not empty, it was full of everything that had been left unsaid for too long, and I realized then that this was not just about betrayal, not just about control or power or survival. It was about something far more dangerous, something I had spent my entire life avoiding because it could not be calculated or controlled. You thought I would choose him, I said quietly, the realization forming as I spoke it. Lily did not look away, did not soften, did not deny it. I knew you would, she replied, and there was no accusation in her tone, just certainty, the kind that only comes from experience, from knowing someone well enough to predict the choices they would make even when they did not want to admit it. I felt something shift again, deeper this time, something that had nothing to do with strategy or power, something that had everything to do with what I had almost lost without realizing it. I stepped closer to the table, the distance between us closing slightly, not enough to erase what had happened, but enough to acknowledge it. And now, I said, my voice lower, steadier, what do you think I will choose? The question hung there, heavier than anything else we had said tonight, because it was not about the past, it was about what came next, and for the first time, I was not sure I already knew the answer. She did not answer right away, and that silence felt longer than anything that had come before it, not because it was empty, but because it carried the weight of everything we had just uncovered, everything that could not be undone. I stood there waiting, not for control this time, not for certainty, but for something I had never allowed myself to need before, her answer, her choice, her truth. Lily studied me carefully, like she was seeing something new, something she had not expected to find. And for the first time, I realized she was not measuring my power, she was measuring my change. I think, she said slowly, her voice softer now but steady, that you finally understand what this costs. The word settled between us, not as a challenge, not as a test, but as something real, something earned. I exhaled quietly, the tension in my chest shifting into something else, something clearer, sharper, more certain than anything I had felt all night. I understand enough, I said, and that was the truth, not everything, not yet, but enough to know what mattered now. My gaze drifted briefly to the glass on the table, the same glass I had watched her touch, the same glass I had believed carried something meant to end me, and now it meant the opposite. It meant time, it meant survival, it meant her. I stepped closer again, not stopping this time, closing the distance completely until I was standing directly across from her, not as an opponent, not as someone searching for fault, but as someone finally seeing what had been in front of him all along. You should have told me, I said quietly, not as an accusation, but as something closer to regret. She held my gaze, unshaken, but there was something in her eyes now, something that had not been there before, something fragile beneath the strength she had carried for so long. And you should have trusted me, she replied, just as quietly, and that was it, that was the balance, the truth neither of us could escape. I nodded. Once, slow, deliberate, because there was no argument left, no defense strong enough to undo what had already happened. You are right, I said, and the words felt unfamiliar, not because they were hard to say, but because I had not said them enough, not to her, not where it mattered. The silence that followed was not heavy anymore, it was different, quieter, like something had finally settled after being held too tight for too long. I reached for the glass again, my fingers wrapping around it, feeling the same warmth, the same weight. But this time it did not feel like a test, it felt like a decision. I lifted it slightly, not drinking it, just holding it there, letting the moment exist exactly as it was. Then we finish this, I said, my voice steady, certain, no hesitation left in it. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in doubt, but in focus. We, she repeated, and there was something in that word, something that had not been there before, something I had not given her the right to use until now. I nodded once, meeting her gaze without looking away. We, I confirmed, and for the first time since this began, it did not feel like a loss of control, it felt like clarity, like the difference between holding power and understanding it. I raised the glass and drank again, not because I needed to prove anything, not because I needed to test her, but because I understood now what it meant. The liquid burned the same, steady, familiar, but everything else had changed. I set the glass down slowly, the sound softer this time, almost quiet, like the end of something rather than the start of it. Lily did not move, but she did not look away either, and in that stillness, something shifted again, not dramatically, not visibly, but enough to know that what came next would not be the same as what came before. I took a step back, not to create distance, but to move forward, because standing still was no longer an option, not now, not after everything we had uncovered. Victor does not know that I know, I said. More focused now, more grounded in the part of myself that had always known how to handle what came next. She nodded once, understanding immediately. No, she said, and that is the only advantage we have. I let out a slow breath, my mind already moving, already building, already planning, but this time, it was different. This time it was not just about strategy, not just about control, it was about something else, something I had almost lost without realizing it. I looked at her one last time, not as a suspect, not as a variable, but as the one person who had stood in the space where everything else had failed, you kept me alive, I said quietly, and this time it was not a question. Not an accusation, just truth. She held my gaze, and for the first time, there was no distance left in it. Someone had to, she replied, and the simplicity of it stayed with me longer than anything else, because it said everything I needed to understand. I nodded once, turning slightly as my focus shifted to what came next, to what needed to be done, but something inside me had already changed, something I could not undo, something I would not ignore again, because power could build an empire, but it could not protect you from losing the one person who chose to stand beside you when everything else turned against you.